So first off, thank you. My name is Jeff Bull. I'm a senior manager of developer advocacy at Cisco DevNet. So that's our developer relations organization. Dad, husband, my pronouns are he and him. I've been a teacher. I've been a people leader for most of my career, or a large portion of my career, in different roles. I used to teach the Cisco Networking Academy way back in the day when I worked at one of my first technology companies. And I love to plan things. I love to plan projects and events and things like that. I'm also a baker. I love baking. I love baking sourdough. I did that during the pandemic and I kept doing it. I love to travel. My family, my wife and I bought a trailer last year, so we travel. We just got back from Disneyland. As you can see, probably from this image, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. My new lightsabers on the ground here. I love tattoos. My likes are kind of all over the place. And I think that really, the reason I wanted to bring this up is it really plays into what I'm going to talk about today, which is how do you be a people leader for a set of people that are so completely different? It's an important part of the role in being a people leader in general. And I think it's something that doesn't get talked about nearly often enough. So that's what we're going to dive into in just a sec. Oh, and I'm on YouTube too. I like to talk about all things Star Wars on YouTube as well. So today, in the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to go through a few tips for you on how to engage with a diverse team, how to work with those people, how you can support them. We're going to talk a bit about that. What the outcome is going to be. I'll talk a bit about my background, and then we'll have some questions hopefully at the end. What I want you to walk away with is pretty clear on the screen here. I want all of you, anyone who's in a people leader role, looking to be a people leader, or working with your leader to understand how better to better improve your team or have better interactions with those leadership that you do work with. I want everyone to walk away feeling like you can have these conversations and they become comfortable for you. I'll get into my story in just a minute, but one of the things I think that is the most important is to be able to have a conversation about what can make you successful, how you like to work as an individual person, and have that conversation with your boss. And as a people leader, being comfortable having the conversation with your team individually and as a team. How do they like to work? What do they need to be successful? And I don't mean that in a sense of like placating them, like what tools or what access to what products do you need? I mean, what do they need on a daily basis so that they can be successful? Fewer meetings, more interaction. What does it look like for them so they can do their job and feel really good about what the work that they're actually doing? So a bit about me. This is where I just was last week. You can tell I'm very happy about where I was when I was there last week. And it's something that makes me exactly the person that I am. I'm a massive geek. And when I joined developer relations here at Cisco about a year, actually just over a year ago now, I had been at Cisco in sales for a while, and I'd been a network engineer for most of my career, people leadership and things like that. And I felt a lot of imposter syndrome when I joined this role because while I had been around automation and programmability and topics like that for the latter part of my career and understood that those are important things, I've never been a DA. I've never written code professionally for my job. I've done things as a hobby or as part of the work that I do, but it's never been the role that I've had every day. So you can imagine coming into a new position as a people leader, leading a team of people who do work that you don't already do or you haven't done professionally. It's pretty scary. And I think that's something I made a point of telling my team when I joined, individually and as a team, because I wanted them to know that I'm not trying to be something I'm not. I'm not here trying to be that other role, and I want them to be aware of that. And I think most of my career, and I think probably a lot of people here too, if you are a people leader or you're aspiring to be a people leader, something you've probably noticed is that what we've always dealt with in our careers is you get really good at the thing you do and then you get promoted. But then no one really teaches you how to be a people leader when you're actually there, which a number of the sessions that have happened already have talked a bit about that. When you get into this role, it is a different job. As Simon Sinek would say, you lead the people who do the things. You don't do the things anymore. Now, as Bear mentioned the last presentation, that's not always exactly true. There's some nuance there if you have smaller teams, et cetera. But generally speaking, your role is to not do the things anymore. That's what your team does. You're there to help them be successful. That's a totally different job than you used to have. And it's one you have to embrace because it takes a lot of different types of skill sets to do that. And I want to call out that those skill sets, the people who work for you, their history, their background, that's what makes them diverse. We think of diversity in these big words like, what nationality or race or skin color, all these big things that make up diversity. And yes, that is true. And it is also, the word diversity is also so much more. It's people's history, their background, how they like to work, their mental health status. All of these things is what makes up a team and makes them diverse. And being a people leader, of diverse people is trying to understand and empathize with those individuals so you can better support them in the ways that they need to be supported as an individual. So my wife and I recently landed on Ted Lasso. A lot of people have been telling us to watch the show, and so we've been watching it. Many of you may have already binge this. We have been catching up on this, and I think this quote is something that has stuck with me above all the reading and books I've read or podcasts I've listened to in the last 2 or 3 years. All people are different people. There's a scene in the show when that gets said, and I think that is absolutely something that all leaders need to remember. All people should, but leaders especially, you need to remember this. All people are different people. You are going to lead them differently because they all need things that are different from one another. So, a couple things that I want you to remember is you need to embrace your own self awareness. Be aware of what makes other people comfortable, but also know that that's probably going to make you uncomfortable to some degree, not because it's bad, but because they're not something you're normally used to thinking about. You think about yourself and how you deal with that. But now you need to think about what do they need? So you have to remember things like they're individuals. They have their own likes and dislikes, their own passions, their own priorities. Most of them do not think of work as their top priority, and that's a good thing. You want people to feel like their life is their top priority. How can you help them with that? How can you let them bring those passions with them into the work they do every day? You've also got to recognize those people for their own uniqueness. Do they like to talk a lot like me? Do they not? Are they kind of some mix of introvert, extrovert? Do they like to be about public speaking? Do they like to write blogs? I work with a lot of people, we all probably do, who have varying degrees of comfort in those different areas. That's okay. You want to understand that so you can help them be successful in the things that they want. Because we don't gauge in DevRel, from what I can tell, we don't gauge people's success in this job by did you write 10 blogs this month and 2 presentations? That's not an accurate gauge of success. Gauge of success is going to be different per person, so long as we're reaching the goals that we want to hit at the end. How we get there, it can be very fluid in that path. There are two other things really, but one thing I really want to call out is employee well-being is no longer a benefit. It is an absolute necessity. People's mental health, their well-being every day at work, their well-being as people and as human beings is paramount to them doing a job well, because it's paramount to them feeling like a real human being in the work that they do every day and as a person every single day. You need to be aware of that and embrace that and try to stoke that as much as you can. Make sure they know they can take time off. Make sure they know that they can do whatever they need to be healthy. Like go take a nap. We're not here to make sure they're working 9 to 5. So that's not what we're trying to do. Employee well-being is a necessity. And then lastly, relating people without sounding like you don't know anything. It's okay. I just admitted I have never been in developer relations before. I've never written code as a profession before, but that doesn't mean I can't lead a team well. I understand the work that they do. I empathize with how they do it. My job is to let them know that where I don't understand something, I'm going to ask questions and we'll have a conversation about it. And they can teach me and help me understand so I can better help them with the things that they do. But it's not about pushing through and just doubling down on something just because you don't understand it. Listen to them. Number 2 here, this is the second big tip I want to kind of go through is you need to listen to your team and you've got to remember what they say. Now, I have a terrible memory. I know that. So I grab my phone and I dictate notes to my phone all of the time because I'm not going to remember it. I'm not even going to try to remember it anymore. I'm just going to write it down and that way I can come back to it later. And I have to hold myself accountable to make sure that I do that. But that is an important thing that you need to remember because listening to them, writing down what they say, and coming back and reflecting on that is an important part of the work that you are doing with them on a daily basis. They need to know that you have heard them, you have processed that, and you're going to do something with them. Conversations with your employees used to be when I was in my 20s and I was first coming up in the first people leader job I had, the questions you were supposed to ask your team was things like, what are you pushing on? What's blocking you? How can I help you? Great. But that's what you ask a computer. That's what you ask, a script someplace. What's preventing this script from running properly? That's not what you ask a person. What you ask a person is, how are you? And probably more specific than that, how did that thing that you told me about last week go for you? Did it go well? How'd you feel about it after you're done? Have you taken some PTO recently? Questions like that are what you need to ask them. And you need to give them the space to feel like it's okay to talk about those things. Don't talk over them. Sit back and listen and absorb. Don't take it as negative. Don't take it as attacking you. You're giving them the space to talk, so let them talk and take that information and then do something with it that is meaningful. This is a big deal. Allow everyone to speak up during meetings. I wanted to call this one out really, really specifically because allowing people the room to be able to speak in meetings is huge. And I don't mean by saying this, I don't mean everybody. What I mean specifically are those people who come from marginalized communities, underserved communities, people of color, women, all these groups that typically don't feel like they can have a voice. There is a whole body of research, a massive body of research that says that people of groups who are not cisgendered white males in a room on a team don't often feel like they have the capability of, or the space to be able to speak up and voice their opinions, because they'll get talked over or shot down or they're devalued. Now, that's not universal, but I think we can all probably agree that there's a lot of research and a lot of history behind this, and it's terrible. We don't want that to happen. And as a people leader, it is absolutely incumbent on you to create a space for the people on your team, all types of people on your team, no matter what they look like, their age, where they come from, that they all feel like they get a chance to speak up, they can be heard, they are seen, and their voices are meaningful to the decisions you're making as a leader. That's so important. I would spend all of my time on this slide if I could, but I think I wanted to make sure that this was stated out loud. There's actually a really good article by Stacey Vanek Smith, NPR, one of my favorite podcasts, actually, The Indicator by Planet Money, that talks a lot about how to stop from people getting interrupted, how to give them space. I'll post a link in Discord after my session, but it's something to remember as a people leader, that meetings going long or one person talking too much, sometimes that makes sense. There's certain types of meetings where that needs to happen, and that's okay. But it's up to you as the people leader to make sure that everyone is getting a chance to speak up and they feel like they can be heard, and no one person is going to overrun everyone else. That comes down to meeting management. That's probably a whole other talk in and of itself, but it's something to definitely remember because it is really important. All right. Change your strategy. As a people leader, when you come into a new team, just like doing any job, you might have a plan for what you want to do, go on a bit of a listening tour. My VP, when she came on board, that's what she did. She did a listening tour, talked to everybody, listened for a while, and then her strategy started to develop. And she had one, and then she started to explain it to us. And I'm sure she evolved that as she came into the role more. I do that as a people leader. I come in, I think I'm going to do these 5 things, and then as I meet people and I talk to them, and I'm in the job for 4 or 5 minutes, whatever it happens to be, or sorry, 4 or 5 months, not minutes, whatever it happens to be. That'd be way too short. When I happen to be in the role for a while, then I start to evolve that. I am a big proponent of this idea that strategies are tools, and tools are replaceable. They are super important. You need a tool to implement anything that you want to do. To get anything done, you need to have the right tool to do the job. But at the same time, tools are almost completely unimportant, because you should be able to change that tool whenever you need to make that job more efficient, to make that work more efficient, to make it move to the next place. I see strategies in the same way. Bring a strategy in, best laid plans, bring them with you, figure out what you think you want to do, and then as you learn, change it. Don't sit back and feel like, well, I've had this plan and it's what I've been taught to do by eons past mentors, or the way things just kind of were always done. You don't have to hold on to that. Nothing has to be sacred. If something needs to change because your team needs something different, great. A great leader is willing to change to support those people on the team because they need something different. And that's a learning journey I've had to go through in the last 6 years as a people leader, and trying to better understand what my team needs. And I've learned a lot from the last couple of companies that I've worked for as a result of that. I know this was mentioned in the last session. I know others have probably mentioned it as well, but I definitely wanted to make sure to call it out. Practice and admit when you make a mistake. It is totally okay. As a matter of fact, it's almost imperative that you do this. I make mistakes all the time. I know all of us make mistakes all the time. That is okay. You're a human being. You are going to make a mistake. It's all right. Make a mistake. Here's a great example of this. I've done this numerous times as a people leader, and I'm still trying to figure it out. How do I have team meetings? How often should I have them? How long should they be? What do we talk about? Do we just do a top of mind every time and we do the same structure? I don't know. I still haven't found one that is just universally good. So I try something different each time I lead a new team. And I start off one way, and within a few months, it changes to something completely different and a different schedule. And we do 2 or 3 iterations, because all people are different people and they all need something different. They don't all want to meet every week. I have one person on my team now, and if he's watching, he would definitely tell you this. He pushes back heavily on interrupt-driven work. He doesn't want to just meet for the sake of meeting. And I've had to remember that, because my first thought would be like, okay, we got to have a meeting, right? We got to have this team meeting. But then I sit back, Adam Grant's book, Think Again. I sit back and I'm like, wait, hold on. Do we? Is that something we actually have to do? So I sit back and, okay, you know what? Maybe that was the wrong approach. Maybe that wasn't the way to go about this. Let's try something different and ask the team, what do you think we should do? How should this go? Practice this. Admit if you've made a mistake, or admit when you tried something and it didn't quite pan out the way that you were hoping it would pan out. That's totally fine. Let them know and ask for their input. Ask for their feedback. Go from there. It shows your team that you are a human being just like them. You're not infallible. You don't even believe you're infallible. You're just trying to do a different job than they do. You're there to support each other, and you move on. And I apologize. Could I get a quick time check? The time, I wasn't quite sure what time we started here, but I'll keep going. All right. So I'm just listing this here as kind of a wrap, a closing sort of a wrap up slide that I wanted to list for everyone. Stormtroopers after a fun day of paintballing. The reason I wanted to show this is it kind of reinforces that all people are different. People are not stormtroopers on the Death Star. They don't all look the same. They don't talk the same. They don't all behave the same. They're not following the same rhythm. Everyone is different. I have 4 people on my team right now that work for me. I've had varying degrees and varying numbers of people on my team over the many years. And I have to say that every single time I have led a team of people, no matter what they look like and what my assumptions are, every single one always ends up challenging me in some way that I have never expected, because they are just different. They think about problems differently. They approach situations differently. Their lives are completely different. What they prioritize is 100% different from one another. And if I don't allow myself as a leader, and if we don't as a group of leaders allow ourselves to do that, we're never going to be successful. We're not going to be happy. Something that I try to aspire to is, and I help my team as much as I can try to aspire to this, is creating a rhythm between life and work. I don't like the idea of balance. Balance to me is kind of a fake goal you can't ever reach. The scales of Themis balance, that's not real. It doesn't ever happen. What you can, though, create is a rhythm. And what I want to help my team understand is that I see all of them. I know they're all different. And I want to help each one of them create a rhythm in their life and work, so that work is not their only priority. Life is their priority. They get to do the things they love to do. And then when they come to work, whether that's taking a break for an hour and coming back, their minds can be completely into the thing that they want to get done, and they can feel great about it and walk away and feel amazing about it. I don't just want a group of people who are on my team who feel like they have to work the 9 to 5, and at the end of the day, they're exhausted and they can't find the energy every day. That's no fun. Nobody wants to be a part of that. So the purpose of this is see everybody, understand them, understand their differences, try to embrace those differences, and then talk to them, give them space to tell you what they need, and then do something meaningful with that. And so I apologize. I didn't see a timer on my screen here, so I wasn't exactly sure where I'm at in the 15-minute window, but I will open up for questions. I think we have some time usually left over for some questions. Hopefully there's enough, and hopefully I didn't run too short. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So we'll have our next speaker and we'll do Q&A together after that. So looking forward to that. So with that, we'll bring our next speaker up, which I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Diana, we can switch slides. Oh, did we lose? She disappeared. Uh-oh. I think there might be a connection issue. So let's see if we can get our speaker back. And while we're at it, why don't I check the Discord to see if there are any questions? Yeah, I saw the conversation on Discord, but we'll see what happened. Well, while we're waiting, I will jump in and maybe I'll pull in one of my co-MCs. I know Amara's here. Amara, heads up. I'm going to add you. And thunderstorms in the area.
Big thumbs up. Awesome.
I'm like heavily multitasking here. So I'm very appreciative that you said something, because you could have pulled me in and I would have been doing like 7 different things at once.
Speaking of all the different things that we have to do.
Right, literally.
Yes. So yeah, I had some questions. Oh, and I see people typing now. I don't know if this is controversial, but
can I cut you off just a second?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
It sounds like her power and internet are now out and she's not going to make it. We're getting like live updates in the speaker lounge. So
okay. Oh, okay. I see. Yes, I should look.
You can continue with your questions. I can also come up with questions, because I feel like Jeff is fully capable of answering them and filling time.
I always have answers to questions. I can't guarantee they match, but I always have answers to questions.
I will answer the questions you didn't ask, right?
Yes. So I'll put it out there. I was in an interesting situation where, of course, diversity inclusion was talked about company-wide. It was very important. I don't know if there's a company in tech out there where it isn't something that we have to actively work on, unfortunately, right? It's just,
Mhm.
I'll say for DevRelCon, I think there's a positive experience that when we go through the CFP process, it's completely blind, especially through the first run. We just look at the title and the abstract, and we go through that. And I feel like it's very promising in the DevRel space that we have quite a bit of diversity in the outcome when we go through it completely blindly. There's a feeling like, okay, well, we got to go and like rethink certain people because it looks too homogeneous. However, I've been in companies, like I said, where there was a lot of discussion about diversity that we wanted. And I kind of challenged my team when we were looking at certain candidates. And I said, well, if you look at the surface, right, of skin color, whatever background, we might have a candidate that kind of fix addresses those concerns. But we also had a candidate who, on the surface, you might say, like, you were using terms like, cis and white and all that, that I felt like would have actually challenged us a lot more, because was quite diverse in terms of background and approach and, what things they would bring. And so, I wanted to challenge the team to say, I know that we have good intentions, but let's talk about what diversity actually is and how we'll make our team diverse. So I was curious if you've come across that as well, where people are kind of, looking at the optics, and that's also very important, but like, are we going too far sometimes?
That's a really good question. I would say, at least today, I don't think we're going too far. But here's why I say that is I don't think you can go too far. I think too far would be if it's only on paper and we read off a list and say, did we check all these boxes? Groovy, hire the person. I would think that's taking it too far, but because it's that's the type of automation for me that is not that you don't want that automated. But I think in general, it is always good to be challenged by that and be challenged to go back and kind of think again about that person that you were looking to hire, or the candidate pool that you have in this example, because sit back and say, why is it? You have to kind of constantly ask yourself, why is it I was going to pick this person over this person? And was how they visually look or some other attribute like that the thing that was actually changing my mind? I'm not going to say that you shouldn't hire a person because of one of those things, but I think it's really good, especially on a hiring manager, to be challenged to actively think about that, because make sure that if you're going to make this decision, be aware of why you're making that decision. And if you're okay with it, good, bad, or indifferent, then make the decision, but you need to be aware of it. But walking into it, we're like, no, it's totally fine. I put it out there and the recruiter gave me a list, so it must be good, right? No, that's not okay. It never was okay. And now we realize that, like, no, like we can do better than that. It's not hard to do a lot better than that. But I think there are some tools, and probably a whole other session to talk about. There are ways to make sure that when you are looking at that list of candidates, you're being as objective as you can. And it's the way that you really do that is not through just doing it yourself. I have a particular way that I like to, when I approach hiring, I do want to do that first screen, preferably a phone screen. And then I like to hand it off to a team of people over a course of a couple of rounds to do the meetings and the interviews. And then I come back to do a video at the end, because I kind of want to wait to see who this person is and how they behave on screen and hear the feedback before I want to wait to that until everyone else has done that. And then I get input, and then I want to see how this person does. One, because I want to try to remove my own sort of like decision-making biases from the process whenever I can. But I also want to understand is their perspective from my team, when they look at this person, when they hear this person, is their perspectives and their perceptions of them coming from how they view the person behaving on camera? And do I see the same thing? Or is this person just nervous? They could just be really nervous. Like that's I think for general interviewing anyway, but I think it can really help with a lot of these sort of cognitive biases that people deal with in these processes. I don't know if that quite answers your question, but
yeah, definitely. And I think I added to one of the questions we have, which is similar. Maybe there's more things to add. How do you ensure diverse points of view in your hiring process? So maybe the same question.
Yeah, I would say my answer is very similar. You do the best you can. Yeah. I think that's really what it comes down to. And if you have a good process that you establish before you start the hiring process, that's the way to do it. Have that rechecked by your recruiter. Have it checked by other people in your organization. Don't just, well, here's my boss and my teammates, I'll ask them, right? The other people, the leaders on my leadership team, good. And also go find somebody who's not in your group, who is probably one of those categories. Don't call somebody out, but like ask for other opinions. Give them, say, here's the process I'm looking at. What do you think? Or are there any gaps that I'm missing here? Things I should address that I'm not addressing in this process? And then take that input and go do something with it. Don't just listen to it and go, okay, that's not really what I wanted. Do something with that input afterwards, because it's all designed to help you like try to close your blind spots as much as you can. You can only do it so much and you're never going to be perfect at it. But I think if we're always just trying to be intentional about what we're doing, we're going to be on the right path.
Yeah.
This has come up a couple times throughout the, oh my gosh, it's just Tuesday. I was going to say the past couple of days, but it's like today and yesterday. And I was curious, is the process that you have for hiring similar to other hiring managers at your team or company, or is it something that like you defined, kind of socialized around for a gut check, and then you rolled with it?
That's a fantastic question. I think every time I've done a hiring process in my entire career, let alone at this company, I've done it differently. Every single time, I almost do it completely differently than the last time. One, because I like just to try new things. I want to see how something else is going to work. I listen to a training. I listen to a podcast. I read a book. I actually just finished reading Adam Grant's Think Again. So like I'm in this whole mood of like, how do I rethink the things that I've already been doing? But I like to do that because I want to challenge myself every time. Like I've learned something new. I don't hire people all the time. It doesn't happen frequently or that frequently. Okay, well, I've got plenty of space here to try something different. I have some core tenets that I like to include that are making sure there's multiple steps in the process, make sure there's multiple people from my team that are interviewing the people from without my team. But other than that, no, I like to bring in something new every time. I don't know if that's quite how every part of Cisco does it. Cisco is obviously relatively a large company, and DevRel within Cisco is much smaller than that. But I think from what I can tell, our group kind of experiments. So we like to try new things and see what we can do that is a little bit different for the position that we're hiring, especially as a DA, because it's such a different job. Like, when I used to hire networking engineers, most of my career was in network engineering. I ran cables, I configured switches, all that type of stuff. How I would hire somebody that way was kind of prescriptive. I look back on it now, I'm like, yeah, I could have done better, but it was relatively prescriptive. Or when I ran a help desk, it was the same sort of thing. Like the job was kind of the same for every person. This job as a DA, they're creatives, they're artists. That's not, they are unique people in and of themselves. So I like to try something different each time I go through the process. I want to include some sort of problem solving situation where they write some code or solve a problem and have to present on it. The presenting part of it is the biggest part to me. I want to see how somebody, great if you can write code. You should be able to do that if you're going to come into this, role. Yeah, you kind of need to do that. That aside, I want to see how someone can communicate verbally and on camera in front of other people. Given I like to give people all the answers to the questions. I tell them, here's the situation. This is what I'm testing you for. This is what I'm looking for. Here's all the answers I can possibly give you, because I don't really care so much if you can go research all this stuff and put it together better than the other person. We can Google. You can find people to help you in the role. I don't care about that. What I care about is how do you compose yourself and how much time do you put into practicing that and preparing yourself so that you can be yourself in front of these other people. That's what I'm really interested in. I want to give people the space to be able to do that. So I try as best as I can to give them all the information possible, make myself available to answer questions as they're preparing for those interviews. Ping me on Slack, ping me on whatever. Let's have a conversation. If you have other questions, I will clarify that for you, because I want them to feel like they can just be themselves. My hope is that what we walk away from that interview with is, this is the person in their best possible situation. So how did they do?
Right. So it removes that, like, did you answer the question the way that you think you want the hiring manager to hear, or did you answer it authentically? And did you come prepared to, answer the question in a way that maybe the hiring manager would be like, oh, I never thought about it like this, or maybe I thought negatively of it. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, as much as I can. And when we walk away from it, I like to do sort of a debrief. I want my recruiters to go do a debrief with those candidates and get how did they feel? Did it make them feel good about themselves? Did it make them feel bad? I've actually had that before where someone said, no, that actually made me feel really bad about myself because I felt under this weird kind of pressure. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel terrible now. How can I do this differently the next time? Because I don't want someone to feel bad about themselves when they come into this. Everybody should, in my opinion, should walk away from an interview feeling like I got to be my best self. And if this doesn't work out, it's not because I failed. It's because this just wasn't the right time for me.